What is up, Cowboys Nation? It's your boy Mike Tag here and Kelly K9. We are getting this April started. New month, new hope. Maybe the Cowboys might do something. I don't know, but we got an action-packed month of guests, and I mean, it's just we got Crawford Kerr coming in. We got Jay Tuck and Malik Rozier going to talk some college draft and football, all that kind of stuff. And then we also have Sherman Williams from Alabama. Hurt my use, so I'm not happy about that. But we got a whole bunch of stuff going on. But we're going to get this thing started. Kelly, first of all, let me check in with you. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I got a little bit, if you can hear that ice jingle. I got a little bit of beer in the cup here. Got some Crown Royals, Thirsty Thursday, but more importantly, it's Cowboys Cave Thursday. And, you know, we got another great guest coming into the cave that I'm excited about. The OG of YouTube when it comes to Cowboys. I mean, this man has a huge following, well-respected. I've had the pleasure of meeting him, actually being on one of his shows. We kind of there was a live draft thing. They invited me to it. I was able to be there with him. Really, really great guest coming up here. So without further ado, let's bring him in, Mark Holmes.
No, let's get him in. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, Mark, but I enjoy your content.
Oh, thank you.
How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I've been watching you guys, man. I love it. I love the energy that you have, Mike. I thought that you were my age and stuff, but you seem to have a lot more energy than I do, man, when you're going in there getting ready on game day and stuff. And I realized what OG, now some people say original gangster. I know what it really means, old guy. I got it. I'm good with that, though. Man,
well, we love having you. I've been a fan, but really, I have never had the chance or opportunity to talk to you. We haven't been able to, see at a game. Hopefully, that'll change this season. But really, what is your, where are you at the Cowboys history? I know you're a great content creator and all that kind of great stuff you do, but what's your story with the Cowboys? I want to hear some history.
Well, here's the thing, a lot of people will be surprised to find out that I am not from Dallas, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to say, you're not a real Cowboy fan because you're not from Dallas. But as a kid, growing up, I lived, in Northern Virginia, about 15 miles from where RFK Stadium is. And my dad was a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. As a little kid, I idolized my dad. I didn't even know what football was. All I knew was I'm sitting on the couch looking at my dad, and he's screaming, "Go Cowboys." And that's been since the 60s. So I grew up being that Cowboy fan, and it was hard. For everybody out there that thinks that, if you're not from Dallas, being a Cowboy fan, you're not a real one, trust me. I went to high school with Richie Pettibone's kids. Joe Gibbs' son was the crosstown rivals quarterback. And my brother even ran into Dyron Talbert's wife's car. So I literally am all around all of these Washington Redskins players and family members and stuff. And this is during the 80s when they were winning Super Bowls. So it was no fun for me being a Cowboy fan back then. So, I'm still here kind of sticking the knife in the back of Washington fans and things like that, although it's hard to find a Washington fan around here anymore.
I was going to say, well, I'll say this. I am born and raised, people know, born and raised in South Florida. Mm-hmm. So I am like you, but I bleed silver and blue. I've been Cowboys fan my whole life, and I'm from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Born in 75, but I'm the 80s generation when the Cowboys are kind of starting to go downhill.
Yeah.
And I was the same. Got laughed at school. Used to wear my Cowboys jacket. People make fun of me. The Dolphins never got to the Super Bowl, but they were always better than the Cowboys. And then we finally get to the Super Bowl, and I see every son of a wearing Cowboy stuff all of a sudden used to piss the shit out of me. And so I quit wearing it in school. But anyway, it's a cool story. And Talbert, he hated the Dallas Cowboys. Let me just tell you, my brothers talked to him, and he despised the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. Really hated Roger Staubach.
Well, see, that's the thing that a lot of people, we're older, so you saw a lot of it. If you saw football back in the 70s and the early 80s where there was no free agency. When you were a Cowboy for life. And it wasn't, we're going to go work out with Washington players in the offseason, we're buddies and everything else. They literally hated each other. And the atmosphere of Washington Cowboys week, the buildup was just as big as the game. And these guys were literally fighting like it was for their lives. Not like what what you see today. You know, when I see like what I did in the playoff game there against Green Bay where guys are kind of checking out, no, that didn't happen back in the day. This was your life. I mean, it wasn't that you're getting paid millions of dollars and you're okay. This was everything when they played. And it's kind of sad to see how it's gone through. I understand, you know, having been in special teams a lot and getting plenty of concussions and stuff. I get it that they're trying to keep the players safe and things like that. But the passion that it used to be there is just not there the same way.
Yeah, and I think that's why I interview, and Kelly and I try and get a lot of the old guys on, because it's just a different attitude. You know, we had like Kevin Gogan on, and he was like, you know, when we lost, I'm not staying on the effing field, man. I want my ass out of here. Now these guys are sitting here enjoying the celebration, doing jersey swaps. It was just a different mindset, right, Kelly? Yeah. I mean, just a different mindset.
Well, and you know, I was gonna say, you know, not only that, but I mean, we're seeing it whether we recognize it or not. You know, a lot of times, you know, if you start, let's just take an example, you start putting on weight, you don't really notice it until you look back a picture at your skinny yourself, and you're like, damn, I put on some weight. The physicality of football is also going by the wayside, right? I mean, it used to be like, you watch some of the old highlights, man, and some of the hits. I was always a defense. I love defense because I love watching the hard hits. You don't really see those anymore. I mean, yeah, there's still some hard hitting, but it's not like it was in the 90s. And that's not just that's not just a guy in his 40s trying to relive the old days. It's true. And I mean, you look at it now. How many tackles, how many hits have they banned? You could barely even lay a finger on the quarterback. I'm telling you right now, Troy Aikman would love playing in this new era of football. Because that man got killed in the 90s when dudes would just lighten him up. And I think that's a lot of it too. You know, you're seeing a lot less physicality. And I don't know, that's what drew me to football in the first place, is that it's a physical, it's most of the time, a violent sport. And I think that's what, as a young testosterone-filled teenager, I loved about the sport. Yeah. And I mean, I just feel like, man, I keep saying this, they're NBA in my NFL. They're taking away the physicality. Defense is out the window. They want to see 40-point games on regular. You know, long gone are the days of the Cowboys winning against the Eagles 16-13. You know, you don't see those kinds of games anymore, and it's rare. And I don't know, man. It's just changed some things. I still love the sport, but it's definitely changed since we first fell in love with the game.
All right, now we're going to be a bunch of boomers, so we'll get into it. But, hey, I just want to appreciate everyone in the chat. I'm seeing a bunch of people. I want to make it very clear, because I don't know if there's a hater in here or not, but I asked Mark if he could share our video. He's a great Cowboys content creator. He's someone that we all look up to. So I don't know what the comment, the BS that you're saying in there. I don't even look at your name, but we asked him to share it. It's an honor that he would share our content on his channel. So, Mark, I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And with that being said, everybody that's in here, in the description right there up top, I've got the link for Cowboys Cave. Check out Mike Tag and check out K9 Kelly too. Sub up, give him some love and stuff. You may or may not like me or something, which is cool. But there's so many different content creators that are out there that are all putting in the work and stuff to bring you the best news on the Cowboys. And let the haters hate. You know, that's what they do. Because, you know, haters don't realize it, but they actually help your channel to grow, because the algorithm doesn't care if they like you or hate you. They only care that you're watching you.
Well, and that was a funny thing. Kelly and I talked about it. I'm sure you get your share. But when I first did my video, it was kind of by accident. It was an old wrestling thing I used to do as a kid. And I used to always do it with my friends, and then did it for my kids for entertainment. So I did it one time, and someone said, man, you need to post it on Twitter and tag. I had a Tank jersey on, so tag him. And then I got so much love, but then I got so much hate. And in the early stages, I just would respond only to the hate. It would absolutely drive me insane, because I was just some dude doing this. But now I've learned, I just kind of moved past all that, and I appreciate the hate. The haters watch more than the people who love you. Really,
this is true. Yeah, and they get off when you, of course, mention their name. It's like, oh yeah, I'm getting underneath their skin and stuff. So I'm curious. I got to ask you guys a question here, because see, I have been going through all kinds of emotions with this off season, and you know, at some points I keep thinking in my mind that this is the same as every year. You know, every year the Cowboys haven't done anything to improve themselves. They don't care about winning. They're not signing big name free agents. And then I start thinking about like when Von Miller signed with Buffalo or Russell Wilson got traded to Denver, you know, and the Cowboys did, you know, we signed a long snapper and stuff, and we end up being 12-5. I know we've sucked in the playoffs and things, but, you know, as much as they keep anointing guys like Justin Herbert, what's that guy done?
Yeah.
Seriously, He's lost to Dak twice. You know, even Josh Allen, he had that one season they went to the AFC Championship game, but I thought it was all about the Super Bowl. So I look at it and say the only team that's not failing is Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, I would say my opinion of the Cowboys right now, obviously, and I'd love to get your opinion on it when we both respond to you, but that Packer game, playoff game, I will say it, I've said it a million times, worst loss in Cowboys history. Mm-hmm. It may not have been because, you know, they might have had some worse beatings or something like that, but all the expectations of you're at home, you're undefeated, all this other stuff at home, and you go out and you just get your ass whooped. To me, it was just demoralizing, humiliating. I wanted everybody gone. I wanted blood. I mean, as a fan, and then you sit back, right? Then you just kind of like, all right, let's things settled in. I was hoping that they were going to maybe add some pieces, some dogs. Mm-hmm. Never going to sign big name guys. I was kind of hoping they'd add a couple, you know, especially on defense, some dogs. They didn't really do that. I mean, Kendricks, I think, is a good signing, but to your point is everyone is upset about who they lost. Let them go. I mean, they didn't win with them, so I have no issues with what they're doing. And it's just like last year, if you remember, everyone was all bent out of shape, and then they trade for Cooks, they trade for Stephon, and everyone's loving the Cowboys off season. So I tell my son, it's April, man. Let's just chill. Let the draft go. Let free agency go. Then just start going crazy. I don't know, Kelly. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel, I think the reason that this season I feel like feels more frustrating to Cowboys fans is just because, like we were talking before we came on the show, that this Cowboys cycle is almost like Groundhog's Day. We're starting to get tired of it, right? It's like we're 12-5, and it's like we feel we're close, but yeah, we feel like we're so far away. It's like you're standing at the red rope to get into this really cool event that you've been waiting all day for, and we're close. But we keep getting booted out by that bouncer. He's like, back of the line, chomp, back of the line. And we felt like, at least I did, I felt like that we were very close, that if we would just make a few moves, I felt like we're one or two pieces from grabbing some of these premium free agents, right? Grab one of these guys that could really help put this team over the hump and make us get better. And I think last year what we saw was, for me anyway, was at least they did something in terms of, we were a little weak at DB. They added Gilmore by trade. We had a problem at the wide receiver depth, and they added Cooks, right? This year, we had the weakness at the running back, glaring, and then the linebacker. Now, they did add Kendricks. I do like what they did there. But the running back thing, we saw all these, these big-name running backs, not even the big-name ones, but guys that I felt that could have been productive, going for very reasonable prices. It wasn't like these dudes were getting signed to contracts where it was like, yeah, we couldn't have afforded him, or that's way out of our ballpark. I wouldn't want to pay a running back that kind of money. I thought they all got reasonable contracts, and the fact the Cowboys didn't do anything was discouraging, along with the fact that I'm not 100% against Mike Zimmer. I think he'll be good, but the fact that we also, you knew Quinn wasn't coming back, and it was a inexcusable performance in the playoff game against Green Bay. Why not fire him the day after and set yourself up to go get maybe one of these, higher end defensive coordinators, these guys that have these, maybe some up and comers versus what the Cowboys tend to do, and go in and grab a guy with head coaching experience and all of this. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to work out bad for him, but it seems like it's the same kind of thing with the Cowboys. These are the same moves we see. They're not willing to take a chance. Jerry Jones is saying he's all in, but yet, he's pushing just a couple of chips in. When you're all in, you push your chips into the table. You do what the Rams did that year that their owner's talking about, F them draft picks. And he's going out and he's getting everybody he can get because he knows he's got a veteran quarterback, and that's what you need to win. Have you a quarterback to win some games, then put the talent around him, build in the trenches and get some elite players, and then pay for it later. And people said that was the wrong way to do it. Well, the Rams were back in the playoffs last year after winning the Super Bowl just a few years ago. you can do these things, and we as fans are smart enough to see other teams do it and wonder why the hell we're not doing the same thing, and that's what's frustrating.
Well, it definitely hurts when you're sitting there looking at Houston, making moves left and right. In my mind, it's not so much like the Stephon Diggs trade. That I don't have a problem with spending capital, draft capital, or money. That's one of those ones that's going to cost money and draft capital, and it's a guy that's older and that could blow up in your face. But it's just that, the Cowboys, I think they do so many things well. They are better than anybody else with undrafted rookie free agents. They are better than most teams are drafting, and I think they're almost getting high on their own supply and believing we don't need to mess with these free agents. We're good at getting these young guys in here and so on. And when we draft well and we pay our guys, sometimes it's better off not to pay them and let them go. Get that comp pick and not pay those big salaries. I love Zeke. Oh, my God, I love Zeke. But you don't pay a running back after 4 years. 4 years, their numbers start going down. $90 million. Jalen Smith, you knew he had drop foot, and you paid him early. Michael Gallup, I still don't see the reason behind the urgency to sign him to that deal, because he went from 1,100 yards to 800 yards to 480, and then you sign him to a $50 million deal when he tore his ACL. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. Get him a prove-it year, 1 year, see if he's healed up. Nobody's going to be in a rush to sign him. And you let Cedric Wilson go, who's healthy. That's where you kind of say, what are these moves? When people go through and say, oh, we're in financial hell, if Dak wasn't here, then we would be spending all kinds of – no, they wouldn't. Yeah. They wouldn't. That's not their MO. It was funny because I was talking to Law just before free agency started. I said, do you think that this year is going to be the year that we go through and actually do some things in free agency? He said, you know how to barbecue? I said, yeah, I know how to barbecue. I said, I smoked my meat for like 15 hours, my pork shoulders and this, that, and the other. He said, are you going to change how you do it? He said, it comes out good, right? I said, yeah. He said, are you going to change how you do it? I said, no. He said, that's the Joneses. They look at it and they say, you know what? All these teams are out here grabbing all these free agents, and we end up with a better record at the end of the year. Stephen Jones said it. We won 36 games in the last 3 years. We're right there. And that's their philosophy. They're not going to change it, no matter how pissed off we get. It's just the way it is.
No, and it's they've always been loyal to their guys. They always say that, and they always re-sign their guys, and it's they've made a lot of mistakes with it. It's burned them, and the thing I don't like. Let me just give some quick love to my man Cuts by Jones with the super chat. Anyone, man, you guys know that he's our guy. He's one of our sponsors. He does beautiful cuts, man. So not only does he do that, he's a great griller. So he comes out to the Cowboys Cave tailgate party. Hopefully Markets went at a game you're at because we'll have a good time.
I could use a cut right now, man. My hair is getting kind of like
Well, he can do that. I don't know if you want him to give you that kind of cut.
Oh, shit.
But he will do it. But going back to it, the thing that frustrates me with the Cowboys is the pressure that they now put on their draft. Mm-hmm. And they've got to hit triples and home runs. Everyone said, well, they got to get 3 or 4 starters out of this draft. They've got to get, they can't have any misses. And if you do get misses, and I mean, some we'll see next year, but last year's draft, I mean, Overshown got hurt. So, I mean, let's see how he comes back. Schoonmaker, that's turning out to be, so far not so good. Mozzie had some issues. Now he's shoulder surgery. So maybe he comes back, but you saw the impact that had when you did not strike gold with the draft, and now they're going to put this pressure on again, and that's why I didn't understand. Draft a running back. Go get Trey Benson. Go get one of these young running backs. But, man, you had some veterans just sitting out there that you could have got for peanuts, and they just didn't do it. They're so headstrong on their guys, their way, and it's been 30 years, and it's just almost 30 years. I know someone will correct me if I say 30 years. It's almost 30 years, but it's like, change it up a little bit, man. I know you're not going to go big splash in free agency, but man, do something.
Well, something that I saw that came up today, and I screenshot it. I had to look for it, and I wish it didn't capture the guy so I can't give him credit for whose it was. So I do apologize. But he says, Mark said something that stuck with me, and he's talking about, even if, we had Dak under a cheaper contract, rookie contract, whatever, we wouldn't spend this kind of money. So this dude showed something in 2018. 2018 was the year they traded for Amari Cooper, and they did that midway into October, right? Mm-hmm. At the beginning of that year, 2018, Dak Prescott's salary cap hit was $725,000, right? Mm-hmm. Their wide receivers that they had on starting opening day was Michael Gallup, mm-hmm. Allen Hurns, mm-hmm. Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, Deontay Thompson, and Tavon Austin.
Yep.
I mean, you look at Houston and it's, and of course we ended up trading for Cooper, but again, that was into October when the Cowboys were like, you know what, we need to do something because we're in trouble right now. There's no legit. You look at Houston and what they're doing, like Mark said, they're bringing it, dude. They've literally got 3 receivers on that roster right there that are dogs. All 3 of those dudes are potential to go over 1,000 yards, but they're going about it the right way, and even when the Joneses had Dak under that rookie contract, they still didn't go out and grab big time free agents and put this elite talent around him. Mm-hmm. They always kind of did what Mark said. It's they want to do things on the cheap, and they want to, the draft, which they've drafted well as of late. I thought last year, it's still to be determined, but last year obviously was not great. But you look at this Cowboys team over the history, and it's just like, what are they saving that money for? They always tell us that they're saving it for something. First there was the Jerry Jones talking about the pie. There's only so much of the pie. Mm-hmm. Now they're talking about 2025. We've got, guys to sign in 2025. Like, no other team in the NFL is doing that. They're literally going out and they're free agency starts. 31 other teams make moves. One team stays stagnant, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm over here like pounding my head like, what in the hell is going on with the Cowboys?
What the bottom line is, if they were just hire somebody who understood contracts and the cap, because there's no way you can tell me that every year New Orleans starts out like $73 million in the hole. Yep. Somehow by the time the season starts here, the league year starts, they've always got $20 million more than we do. They go out and they sign people. You look at how the Eagles have gone through. They ate $34 million dead hit for Carson Wentz one year.
Yeah.
They've already gotten Jalen Hurts paid $51 million a year versus Dak Prescott at $40. Now think about that for a second. He's making $11 million more a year, and they're sitting here today with $25 million more than we do in salary cap after all the moves they've made.
Yeah. And just re-signed alignment, right? Didn't they just extend alignment?
Yeah, exactly. Like so you sit here and you look at this and say, we've lost players. We have signed 3 of our own guys and brought in Eric Kendricks, and we still have less money than them. So it's like there's something you're not doing right with the money, okay? There's no way in the world that you can look and say, we don't have any money, but 31 other teams do. You are 20th, I think, in dead money this season, and I think dead last in money spent in free agency. How is it you're broke?
Yeah.
No, they ain't broke. They raised my season ticket prices. They didn't mind doing that without letting me know. And then they did the convenient thing with your seat license. You had to pay it the day or 2 before free agency started. You had to pay your seat license. I mean, they're smart business guys. I mean, I got to give it.
Get you hooked before you get pissed is what it is. Oh, man, the Cowboys.
They don't want to play on emotion. So let me ask you, because Dak is a hot topic, and I know, you have some feelings on Dak, strong feelings. And what is your, observation? Dak, his career so far and moving forward with the Cowboys.
Here's what I would love to see. See, the Texans, as much as you got Eastside Harold in there, shout out to Eastside. He's going to probably start trolling you now. I don't know if some of the people that are subbing up to your channel now that you necessarily want or not. But could you imagine if the Cowboys did what the Texans are doing right now? They look at it and they say, we got C.J. Stroud. He's a good young quarterback. Let's put people around him. Look at what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, because they were like, we're not sure if he's going to be good or not, but let's do everything we can to support him. I keep hearing so many people that hate Dak. Either you love Dak or you hate Dak. But they'll say Dak Prescott can't elevate a team to win a Super Bowl. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that there's anybody that actually goes out there without a semblance of a team to win it. If you're saying he's got limitations, why don't you go ahead and do something to support those limitations? Why is it we're going to do more with less? In the past few years, Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in football, you got rid of him. You ended up bringing in, James Washington.
Yep,
We signed James Washington. We had Noah Brown, and you signed back Michael Gallup, and you also let your number 3 receiver go.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in my mind, you got worse as far as talent around your quarterback. And we didn't really have a tight end. Jason Witten had finally aged out, and we were just kind of like throwing, we had Dalton Schultz, but Schultz Schultz had good numbers, but Schultz had a lot of drops, and Schultz was not that guy that's going to make big plays, No. Jake Ferguson, I look at him and I say he might become a really, really good tight end. You see a lot of promise, and that's a position that takes time to grow. So then you look at it and say, okay, Zeke Elliott is kind of going downhill. I agree with letting him go. He was too expensive. But then you don't replace him. You look and say, okay, Tony, you're going to be Zeke and Jew. And he had a hard time staying healthy when he was running 10, 12, 15 plays. One of those games when the year before Zeke was out, he had to have like 25 carries. He was sucking oxygen and talking about, he's just worn out. So how do you think now he is going to be able to be your full-time back?
Yeah.
And Tyron Smith, it's almost comical now how everybody's pissed off because we let Tyron Smith go. But the reality is Tyron Smith has averaged 7.5 games a season for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
People were mad that we let Zeke go, but it's like Zeke has been averaging like 3.8, 3.7 yards a carry. His play has been going downhill and doesn't justify $16 million a year. I understand the move, but you got to replace that. When you get rid of people, you've got to replace it. I often wonder, what would this offense be like if we did something like the Eagles did and really bring in more people and try and really build it up, take care of the offensive line instead of saying, we can bring in Jason Peters and we'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I said in the beginning, there's some love from Houston. I said all season last season, the running game is going to bite him in the ass.
It does.
Tony Pollard was not a number 1 running back. It's a 2-back league that had nothing really behind him. Pollard really could. It reminded me a lot of Felix Jones. I kept comparing it to like the Felix Jones. Felix Jones was dynamite at 2. Then they made him the 1, and his career never was the same. So we'll see what happens, to Pollard. But that you got to have a running game as good as Mahomes is, and Mahomes is the best. There's Mahomes and everyone else not even close. But Pacheco kind of got he got going, and that offense gets going. You got to have a running game. I know it's a passing league, but you got to be able to run the football. And at that Miami game, I always go back, man. You had that secondary, that cornerback taking Pollard down with one arm at the goal line. It's like Jesus. I mean, it just can't work. So that's what worries me about going into this year is they did nothing to address the running game. They better draft a running back, but now that running back better be a stud because there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform.
Well, this is very true that you definitely need a good running back to go with it. Although, a running back can be better depending on how your offensive line is. So, going into the draft, you've got both of those holes that you really want to have an upgrade. But in some regard, I think we're actually fortunate because of Tyler Smith. The Cowboys love to draft a number in the first round. They like to get the highest prospect at a position, right?
Yep.
You could see that with, of course, Zeke. Of course, he was the best running back. Micah was truly one of the best edge rushers. Or even when they moved back and they drafted Travis Frederick, people laughed at him because they took a center. You're taking a center in the first round? But he ended up being, a great one. Same thing typically is what they like to do. So drafting at 24, you look at that and say your left tackles are probably going to be gone. You're probably going to have 2 or 3 of those guys already drafted out of there. So guard and center are more likely that you'll be able to get that number 1 prospect. And, you can kind of play around with Tyler Smith to play left tackle. I'd rather keep him at guard, but if you can't get a great left tackle, you got to protect Dak's blind side. And you have the potential, I think, actually, to be a little bit better. And I think they really believe in Brock Hoffman, that Brock Hoffman won't be a drop from Biadasz that much. There's a lot of times the Cowboys will have some players that are back there that we don't really know that much about that come out of nowhere that end up being legitimate starters. And I think that's what they feel with the team right now. The one thing that I will say gives me hope was actually listening to Jerry, which is crazy in itself to even say this. But when Jerry was asked about Cowboys culture, do you have a culture problem? And what he said was, if running the football and stopping the run is culture, then yes, we have a culture problem. And so as you look and you see the players that have been not re-signed, when you look at it and say that, we've got Dante Fowler. Well, I think Goldston is as good as he is. When you look at Dorrance Armstrong, 2 years ago when we re-signed him and let Randy Gregory go, and Stephen Jones said, he's right there in production just like Randy Gregory. I think Sam Williams should be able to step into that role. He has had 8.5 sacks in his 2 years on limited playing time. He's got the physical tools. He needs somebody to teach him and to not make the Randy Gregory penalty mistakes. But I think that's a guy that can step up. If those things happen, then you're not in as bad a shape as you think, because I honestly think that with Kendricks there, if Overshown becomes healthy and Damone Clark doesn't have to be the guy, your linebacking core is probably better than it's been in quite a while. Mm-hmm. And if you can get yourself some decent defensive linemen, and I'm not ready to give up on Mozzie just yet. When you're a rookie, your eyes are wide open. Dan Quinn decided, we want to make you a 3 technique. We want you to lose 40 pounds. And that can really mess you up because, most people will think that, you're a defensive lineman. It's the same thing. There's a big difference of playing as a tackle where the guy is a little more than a yard away from you versus being a 1 technique where you've got the center and your contact point is me just reaching out and touching you. And so I think that he may end up being a little bit better than we think. And Vioko is another one to watch as well. So we have some players that are on this team. We've got all the doom and gloom. We're only going to win 4 games next year. No, this is still going to be a good team. Is it going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl? Unless the Cowboys make some extra moves to make sure they've got enough talent to get over it, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, the draft being just it's this month.
3 weeks. 3 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, a couple weeks away. And obviously, you talked about, D tackle, and we've talked about kind of free agency and the lack of what they've done. So let me just ask you real quick, two quick questions on this, on the draft. One, first round, you got your pick of the positions that they go after, right? Do you have anybody in mind that sticks out, or do you have a favorite that you're looking at? Me personally, I'm looking at these defensive tackles. I kind of like that Murphy from Texas. If he was to fall to the Cowboys, that pick, I'd really love them. DT or offensive line, I feel like kind of building the trenches and being solid in the trenches is something that can benefit the Cowboys. And then 2, are you in favor of the Cowboys trying to do some trading back to acquire more picks? Because obviously they're short a couple picks from what they gave up last year to get Gilmore and Cooks. We got some comp picks coming, but that are going to be factored in there too. But are you a fan of doing any trading back, or are you just kind of like, play the board and let it fall?
Well, here's the problem the biggest problem I have with the Cowboys. The Cowboys always seem to do their homework and do great in the first round. It's that second round where they're always trying to get first round talent, from the scratch and dent pile, and very rarely has it worked out for them. When we look at second round picks, you can look and you can see the highway littered with them. You can look and say that Diggs and D-Law since about 2012, that's the list. Or you can put Sean Lee on there as well. Those were really the only second round picks that have done well. Now, we do have time still with Sam Williams and with Schoonmaker. Hopefully that they're not the some of the ones that we've had, and we've had some really bad ones there. So first thing, I hope the Cowboys don't draft anybody who's been injured or off the field issues, because it just has not worked out for us. We have had better luck trading back when we traded back for Travis Frederick, and we ended up getting wide receiver in the third round. I'm trying to remember. Terrence Williams. Basically, you got a free player. And the same thing with when we moved back with Micah Parsons, we ended up getting Goldston. And Goldston, I think he just needs some more playing time on there. He's actually really good as well. For me, the Cowboys have been lights out with offensive linemen. Everybody that they've drafted in the first round has been a Pro Bowler and been a game changer, and I would love to see them go with the offensive line. The offensive tackle from Oregon will probably be gone by the time we get there. I would love to be able to see them get him. In the second round, I would love to see them, if possible, get Trey Benson. And maybe this is a case where if they move back, that maybe they get their offensive tackle and they can move up to get Trey Benson, because I'm not sure Trey Benson will make it there to 54. You don't
think Trey will get to the third round? Because I've seen a lot of mocks where he's going. Because I like him. There was a question about him or Brooks, and Brooks is one of those guys, like you said, he's a little injured, but he's young. But I'm with you. I don't want to take chances. I need solid guys. I like Benson a lot from FBS.
I love Benson. I would love to have Benson here. Here's the problem: is the pendulum swings. Sometimes it swings too far. I think last year there was so much about running backs that, you don't want to pay running backs. Running backs were literally passe. People were telling their kids, don't become a running back. You're not going to get paid and you're just going to get abused. And I think it swung a little too far. And I think teams are realizing how important it is on that running game as well. Now, the problem is, and I think the Eagles might have this problem with their running game, is when you have a bellwether back that is taking all that abuse all season long, by the time you get to the playoffs, they've got dead legs. If you look back at our playoff losses, by the time we've gotten to play San Francisco and everything else, Zeke and Tony Pollard have been just kind of not there. Zeke has had a PCL injury one year and a hyperextended knee that by the time he gets to the playoffs, we're getting 25, 30 yards from him. That's not enough when it comes to playoff time. If you look at what Troy Aikman had with Emmitt Smith in the playoffs, oh shit, it's night and day difference. And we need to be in that kind of position. So this is where having the multiple backs, and I have no problem with bringing Zeke back if you're drafting another back to go with him. But if we're looking and saying Zeke's going to be our running back, we're fucked.
Hell no.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
They've gotta hit the running back. I'm just an old school football guy that loves running backs, and I just think that it's so important, and you see it in this game, and they've just got to do something. So looking at the draft, there was a comment, about offensive linemen, first round picks, and I don't have all the numbers, so I'm not going to say it's true or not. But Ultra's usually, he's pretty good with this stuff. His offensive linemen first round picks aren't usually in the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's true or not. I thought I remembered a Chief guy Fisher or something in the Super Bowl, but maybe I'm wrong. But
we can say that about ours.
To me, it's offense and defensive line. You got to be strong. You got to be strong up the gut, and I think that's where the Cowboys have had a problem. So to Kelly, I'm like, defensive tackle. I wouldn't mind if the Cowboys. I know Mozzie. They drafted him last year, but I just don't know if you can have enough of those guys. Middle linebacker Kendricks, I think, is going to do a solid job. How do you feel about the safeties? How do you feel about our safeties that we got coming back?
Actually, my whole back end, here's the way I look at it. Now, see, like I said, everybody's got the doom and gloom, the Cowboys suck and everything else. Our problem was we just could not stop the run. And see, people don't seem to understand. See, the key to everything on your defense, unfortunately, is a guy that nobody will know. And that is the interior defensive lineman. I always say that your biggest bang for the buck becomes that interior defensive lineman. You see what Chris Jones did for that defense at Kansas City. If you have somebody in there who can shut down the middle and requires double teams, you're going to see Micah Parsons feasting. If that guy can hold the middle of the field and push a little bit up, it's going to make it easier on the back end. Your linebackers, excuse me. Hold on, let me grab some water real quick. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. But what is your thoughts on safety while he's getting some more?
I mean, I don't feel like it's the worst that it's been. I mean, I think that we've got some guys back there. Not only that, I'll be curious to kind of see what they do with Bell. I mean, he's still on the team. I don't think he's going to stay in that linebacker position. So does he get more time at the safety position? You know what I mean? Because that's kind of like his natural. That's where he's built to play, right? So, anxious to see what they do with Bell, because he's a guy that I think has the potential to be really good there. I think he was just, he excelled at that linebacker position for a while, but in the end, that's a physical position. He just didn't have the body built to be that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Mark take.
I should have gotten some of that Crown Royal that you had, and I probably wouldn't have been choking over here. But see, the key will be is if that defensive line can keep that offensive line taken care of. Your linebackers can scrape unmolested. They can see the whole field. And by the linebackers being able to do that, it then turns around and translates to make everybody else's job easier on the back end. Like you were saying, Marquez Bell, I love him. He's great. He is a great run support guy. But putting him in there at linebacker at about 207 pounds is just too small. And teams knew that. As much as everybody wants to look and just say we failed, when you get to the playoffs, you got to be able to run the football. I don't care if you got Pat Mahomes. Pacheco was the difference maker for that team. And you got to be able to stop the run. You look at Kansas City did to Baltimore. They got the 3 takeaways. They basically shut down their running game. That is the difference there. We could not stop the run, and that went out through the whole season. Every time we played a run-heavy team, they ran roughshod over us. So it was like an issue that we had going on. And if there's anything that really irks me is where Stephen Jones is always, we believe in our guys. Well, that works to a point. But at some point, when you're down to a 207-pound linebacker, you got to do something. You've got to do more than that and say, we're going to be good with that. And you can look from the Cowboys. We knew we had a problem at running back. You could have made a deal for Derrick Henry during the season and said, we're going to try and salvage just like we did with Amari Cooper. They just won't do those moves. It's just like, we're good enough. You're not good enough. You don't have any margin for error because you are so low with the amount of talent you have. You lose a key player here and there, you're screwed.
No, it's true. And I want to give a quick shout out. My man Malik Rozier, he hopped into the chat. Miami Hurricane quarterback. He was part of one of those really good teams in Miami. Of course, they beat FSU, so I was happy. Him and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and he's saying draft a quarterback. And we're going to talk about it Tuesday. He's going to be on our show. But I mean, that to me sends a bad message. But he likes Penix. What would you do, either one of you guys, if the Cowboys drafted a quarterback in the first round?
Let me back up here for a second, okay? Because everybody's been talking about that the Cowboys should draft Michael Penix. Is that
that was one of the names,
right? The Cowboys. He could no. But here's what's funny is I'm kind of like, what happened with Trey Lance?
Yeah, that's my thing.
Wait a minute. I thought 3 weeks ago everybody's like it's Trey Lance's error. You can't draft a quarterback in the first round because then that's admitting that you screwed up with making the move for Trey Lance. You don't give up a 4th round pick, then pay him $5 million and then turn around and draft a quarterback. That's when you have to say, I'm sorry, I got to give up with the team because now you're just stupid. Okay, you're already spending more money on quarterback than any team in football, and now you're going to draft another one. I mean, are you smoking crack?
I would have a heart attack. Honestly, if they did that, I would. Unless they did something like they had some trade worked out or something like that, I would absolutely.
It would have to be one of the best quarterbacks there fell for whatever reason all the way there where you look and say I can't pass this up. There's no way but that would be a Cowboy thing to do.
But there's something, maybe not this year, but is there something to Mark and Kelly, we've both been around the block on this Cowboy team. They haven't drafted a first-round quarterback since Aikman. Mm-hmm. They really haven't drafted any quarterbacks, at all. I mean, really, you look at, Dak, obviously, in the fourth round, that was a good one, but Tony Romo was undrafted. They had a bunch of baseball guys that they were trying to turn quarterbacks. You see what Green Bay did with Rodgers when Favre was there. Jordan Love obviously had a good year. We'll see what happens. But you see some of these other teams draft quarterbacks. New England did it with Garoppolo, and I think there was another guy, I can't remember, that they had when Brady was there. Is there something to maybe drafting a quarterback? Maybe not this year, but is there something against the Cowboys drafting a quarterback early?
With as many holes as we have, I know everybody will say you're just a Dak fan. You're not a Cowboy fan. The reason I'm a fan of Dak Prescott is I believe right now he's the best option you have. Okay. I'm sorry. He's got more touchdown passes. I think he was third in yardage out there. One of the least intercepted quarterbacks. I don't know that you're going to do better at that position. And if we had a loaded team, like say the Rams did, when they decided to get, Matthew Stafford and bring him in here to win a Super Bowl, I'd say by all means do that. But we have so many needs. If you bring in, I don't care if you say, we're going to start Trey or we're going to draft another quarterback, you still have to address the problems that you have on the team of you need a better running game, especially if you're going to have a young quarterback. You need to fix your offensive line. You can't lose two starting offensive line, including one future Hall of Famer, and say, we're just going to put a young guy in there, we'll be fine, and we're going to be better. Yeah. So you have to fix those problems. And I think you're better off trying to fix those problems and hold on to this guy than you are saying, let's get another guy, and then we'll worry about the other problems.
Yeah. Kelly, your thoughts? I was more like they've never done it. I mean, since 89, they have not drafted Dak Prescott. He's the one guy that they got, but I don't recall them ever drafting anybody.
One thing that gives you pause, though, is think about some of the guys that they really wanted. Johnny Manziel, Connor Cook, Paxton Lynch, right? And now then you trade for Trey Lance, and you pay more than any of the other quarterbacks that went out there. So you have to actually say they kind of got lucky with Romo, because Sean Payton got him in there, and Dak was literally like, oh, well, shit, what's left? We need a camp body. Oh, there's a guy. Well, let's take him. And I'll be honest with you, the best thing that happened was Kellen Moore broke his ankle. Because if Kellen Moore had not broke his ankle when he did, that Dak wouldn't have gotten all the reps that he did going into that season. Yeah. It would have been Kellen Moore starting first couple of games, and Dak wouldn't have been getting those reps, and who knows where he'd be right now. Walker Wade says, Arch Manning in 3 years. That's our future. Well, you're going to have to go down the toilet to get that guy. You're going to have to be really, really bad. That's the problem with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that some people are forgetting, like, the ones that are saying that, hey, just move on from Dak and talking about, just let's start somebody else this year. Okay. That's if you're doing that, like there's people that are like, we should start Trey Lance this year. So you're going to, in essence, you're going to pay $55 million for Dak to be a backup. That makes zero sense at all in any world, in any, you just don't do that. And not only that, the money they've moved now to the void years, you'll even pay him $40 million next year, even if he's not on the roster.
Right.
You're still, so you want to pay now, sit Dak this year, and basically, in essence, pay $95 million for a quarterback that won't play it down for you. That's won you 12 games over the past 3 years. I get it, lack of playoff success. What sense does that make?
Well, where it would make sense is if you are going to go ahead and say we are moving on from Dak, then holding on to him, Dak is going to come through. Here's what you can guarantee. Dak is going to come through, and he's going to play lights out, because whether it's the Cowboys or somebody else, I'm going to get paid big time, especially if I play well. And if that's the case, he's going to keep you in more games. You'll probably win 10, 11, 12 games, be a playoff team. He can still probably ask for even more money. Maybe it's 65 next year instead of 60. If you're moving on from him, best thing is do it right now. Find out if Trey Lance is any good before you have to pay him more money. You're gonna start Dak all season, and then Trey Lance is a free agent, and say, "Oh, we got to pay him to stay," when somebody might pay him to be a starter.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thing with it is really, and I think Dak gives the team the best opportunity. I agree. And I mean, I've never been part of a franchise that has, I mean, you could argue whatever you want about Dak Prescott. He's a top 7. I mean, you can, I don't think I dropped below 7 quarterback, and people want to get rid of him. So it kind of surprises me, but I understand the money thing and this, that. My thing was, and I'll stay consistent with it. If you're going to, if they want to move on from Dak, then cut him. Offer them, tell them, hey, we're gonna shop your benches. So if you want to try and work out a trade, I know you got a no trade clause. We can find you a team to go to or something. They should have done something like that. But to have him go in to basically a lame duck contract year, I don't know what that's going to do. I just don't know how it's going to work out. And in the end, maybe what will happen, and maybe this is the best case scenario, they win the Super Bowl. Dak gives them the finger and says, you know what? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And Jerry's just looking at it. So it's just a weird situation with Dak Prescott because it's so polarizing. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, this was say what you want, runner-up MVP, and they'll say no playoff success, but I don't hear that with Lamar Jackson. I don't
He's
really
2-4.
You know?
2-4 in the playoffs.
So I don't know. And he wasn't giving up all the rushing yards. It's what I said before, and love to get your comments, Mark and Kelly too. The defense was, to me, overrated, and I fell into the trap. And what I mean by that is when the offense jumped on teams, the defense pinned their ears back and do what they got to do. But if a team smacked us in the mouth and started running ruckshot on us and started bullying us around, they got their ass whooped, and then the offense had to be on 100% of the time. And I'll go to the Super Bowl. The Kansas City offense fluttered for 3 quarters, but that defense was good enough to keep it one score, keep it close until Holmes got going. This defense can't do that, so you're putting all this pressure on the offense. They got to be 40 points every game, or they're not going to win. And that's where I don't think it's fair, the criticism that Dak gets on that. He deserves some, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's all on him.
Well, and what I say, I mean, I've said this, I know I've said it multiple times because I remember I went and looked it up. Like, this defense, like you said, played well against the bad teams, but when they played a team over 500, they gave up 32 points a game. Yeah. That defense was absolutely inflated in terms of what they did and the takeaways that they had. And, and it's funny because, look, I mean, I do, and you're starting to hear a little bit of rumblings about it, but I'm just saying this. I love Micah Parsons. I think he is a great player. But when you look back at it, everybody wants to talk about Dak in the playoffs and all that. What impactful plays has Micah made in the playoffs?
One sack in 4 games.
In big games, period, there's been a lot of times where Micah he leaves a little something to be desired there for me. And then the defense in general, like I said, 32 points a game, getting ran all over by Green Bay. Where is the ire for the defensive players? Where's the ire for the defense? There's none. It's all on Dak Prescott. And that, Dak Prescott's never going to win a Super Bowl. But you know what? The Cowboys have been in this situation now for going on almost 30 years. We've seen this same cycle. We saw it with Romo. We saw it with Dak. We saw this team do this for many, many years, right? We even saw when we got to the playoffs with Quincy Carter in 2003, got smacked around by Carolina. Like, we've seen this team be good enough to get in the playoffs, but go one and done and get bounced in the first round. Like, we've seen this. It's not Dak ain't been the quarterback for 30 years. Yeah. Like, well, I mean,
here's the question.
It's the focus is always on the quarterback. It's always Romo was called a choke artist. He couldn't get it done. Now Dak's a choke artist. He get how many quarterbacks do you have to run through that can win you and get you in a position to be in the playoffs, which is where you want to be as a team to just have a chance? Even if we ain't done well, you want the chance. The point is to be there. That's the goal, is to win a Super Bowl. First step, get to the playoffs. But we're like, no, throw it away. Let's start all over again. It's all Dak. It's all the quarterback. It's Dak is trash. Name me another quarterback that's been on a team that's won 12 games 3 years in a row. It's not that easy to do. People talk about it and just dismiss it like what Dak has done, the numbers he's put up is just that easy to do. So it's a bigger scope than just the playoffs. And I understand the frustration because, trust me, when they lost to Green Bay, I wanted everybody done. I was like Mike Irvin. They all got to go. That was me. But then you look at it and you say, do you really want to move on from a quarterback that you know right now is the best quarterback in the NFC East? I'll stand on that.
Yeah, without a doubt. But
Without
see, here's the problem with that defense was, and I don't know if you want to blame Dan Quinn or with Dan Quinn saying that, you got to have a sense of urgency that tomorrow's not promised, because he ended up doing a lot with the players that we had. But if you looked at the type of players, he had lean guys that are tall and that are fast. They could get after the quarterback. They could move up the field. But, when you have defensive linemen that are 280 and you've got, a 340-pound tackle and we're just putting our hand in the dirt, we're coming right at you. We did not have enough beef to be able to hold them back. And when you end up having a linebacker that's 207, you just don't have the physicality there to work with it. This is where I think that part of the thing is letting the guys go that we did. We looked at it and said, well, we lost with you guys. We can lose without you. And that you now have Mike Zimmer that's going to come in and he's going to want a different body type than what we had for Dan Quinn. And if you look at Dan Quinn, because when you think about Dan Quinn's defense when he was with Seattle, the linebackers were key. He had, Cam Chancellor and those guys, Bobby Wagner's. He had lights out linebackers that he did not have with this defense that he had here. Now, I don't know if that was he just overlooked it and forgot that he needed the linebackers, or if the Joneses were kind of hamstringing him on the amount of players that they would bring in. But I don't think that he forgot how to coach. I think he did a lot with what he had there. And I almost look the same way with Mike McCarthy. Everybody wants to get rid of Mike McCarthy, but you look at the difference of Dak from the year before to this year with a new offense. Now, it was tweaked somewhat, but it's still a new offense. Take a look at what happened to the Eagles changing their coordinators, how they had a drop off. And when you think about Dak being in the system and how having Brandon Cooks in the system with him a second year and Jake Ferguson stepping up, the offense could be really, really dynamic if they do add that running back and get another offensive lineman. You might have that offense that can score 40 points a game. And hopefully we can get a couple of big guys in the middle to help out. I'm pissed off that we are so close and that the Cowboys won't say, let's go out and get a little bit extra to make sure we got enough. That's the thing that drives you crazy, because you look and you say, we're good. We've got some really good players, as good as anybody else. But when I look at what San Francisco has across the board, when I look at a Kansas City and see what they do, and even with the Eagles, how I don't think they're going to be as good as they think they're going to be, but they're constantly trying to get better.
Yeah.
If they screw up with a player, we've got no problem admitting that we screwed up. Let's move on and get the next guy in here.
Yeah. And that's the thing I've always said with the Eagles. And hey, I got some good friends that are Eagle fans, but I have some that I hate. But what I would say is I always have to give credit to the Eagles organization, because they try. Mm-hmm. They have issues. They had issues at run defense. They went out and got a couple guys, Sue and the guy with the job. So they've always done that. They had some issues this offseason, and they went out and addressed them. Again, like you said, with a quarterback that was getting paid a lot of money, but they know how to work the cap, and unfortunately the Cowboys just don't seem to know how to do it. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting, but maybe, the Cowboys, maybe they get some dogs in the draft. That's what I say they need. They need some dogs. Maybe they could pick up in free agency that are left over. They've got enough superstars. They need some guys, like Eugene Lockhart said, bring your lunch pail, that all they care about is winning, and that's all they worry about. Because with the Cowboys comes the notoriety, it comes the brand, it comes all the stuff that goes with it. But I said, if the Cowboy, you win a Super Bowl, if these players listen to this, you win a Super Bowl in Dallas, you're a made man for life. I've seen it. Like Kenny Gant, you'll remember Kenny Gant. Yep. I mean, he was a special teams guy. He had the shark hat, did all that. He's still beloved. He's still doing appearances. He still does the tailgates. He still does all that. And you're talking 30 years later. You win a Super Bowl, you're a made man. And that's what hopefully guys understand is, man, just get us a damn Super Bowl.
Amen on that one, man. I'm getting too old to keep waiting, man. I don't know how many more years I have left, but I hope I see him hold up another one sometime in the very near future.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. But what do you think about that, Kelly?
couldn't agree more, man. I mean, I feel like I've been waiting on this Super Bowl, this sixth Super Bowl for a long time, man. And and it's funny because I feel that a lot of times as a Cowboys fan base, man, we're desperate for answers, man. We you look at it, and every year it's a little something different. This year the buzzword is the culture thing, right? That's the thing. It's always something every year that kind of polarizes the fan base, and I think this year more than any in the past, honestly, is at the quarterback position, and I think that the Cowboys haven't done a great job in really, squashing that, right? Because they've done this by their own actions and the way that they have kind of negotiated with Dak Prescott, right? We don't know where they stand with Dak. I don't. Not by anything that they've said, not by anything that they've done. I mean, they sit there and they talk about that. They'll say good things about Dak, but then they'll say negative. He says Dak's our quarterback. But then also say, Dak can play better. He should play better. We expect him to play better. It's these things that they throw out, and it's like chum. It's like chum into the water. And here come the sharks, man. They're just eating that shit. They eating that shit up, man. The Dak haters are all around. Like, they don't have faith in Dak. Like, if Dak was your guy and you had faith in him, we should have had Dak extended, or we should have had his deal done, reworked, extended before the start of free agency.
How about last year? Because I don't understand the whole thing of waiting, because it just costs you more. If they had done it last year, before everybody started getting their $50 million deals, you've been ahead of game. The whole thing we talked about last year, paying CD. Why are we still waiting to pay CD? Are we waiting for Jefferson to get his deal? So it'll go up even more? It doesn't make any sense.
The way they did the same. No. I mean, they just continue to do that. They wait. They wait.
They did the same. They did the same on the rookie deal, and you sit there and you got we had fans, and rightfully so, saying, "What the hell are we doing? Why aren't we being aggressive with the QB on a rookie deal?" And they waited and they waited and they waited, and then
franchise tagged him.
Meanwhile, Carson Wentz gets his deal, so we got to beat the Carson Wentz deal, and it's like you've got these quarterbacks that are getting extended. And the Cowboys are sitting there waiting and waiting. And then the same thing, like Mark said, last year, they could have probably done something last year. But what happens? Dak goes out. Second, he's the runner-up in the MVP. Has a great season, his best statistical season this year. I mean, he was outstanding in the regular season. Obviously, got off to that slow start in the postseason, and that's what everybody's going to remember. They're going to remember the interception, the 3 and outs. That's what they're going to remember. But he was a good quarterback. I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks around the league, there are other teams that would jump all over the chance to get Dak. And that's the other thing that pisses me off, is that if you don't have the conviction that Dak's your guy, then why don't you try to work out something to get him out of Dallas, but get compensation for him?
Yeah.
Because you see what these other quarterbacks have gone for, and you see what people are willing to give. I mean, was it a 6th-round pick for Fields?
Yeah.
How many playoff games has Fields played in? I mean, the fact that
playoffs. Don't talk about playoffs.
They didn't even have a winning season.
Oh, shit.
They did Chicago. Give him a break.
But no, I know. But it's the potential that he could develop into something that they're willing to invest that kind of pick. There's no potential when it comes to Dak. You've seen what he can do. He's not over the hill. He's not aged. He's not injury prone. He's a guy that can come in and he can instantly win you games. And if you build around him and build around him smartly,
there you go.
I believe he can win you a Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody says. It's a quarterback's the most important position on the field, and the Dallas Cowboys have one that is in the top 10. In the top 10. So you can't tell me that he cannot win a Super Bowl when we've seen lesser quarterbacks win the Super Bowl when they have talent around them. I'm going to be out. I'm not trying to knock Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I do not. And guess what? He made it to the Super Bowl because the Eagles put a all-star elite. They put a great team around him, built around him, and took him to the Super Bowl. Is Brock Purdy this great quarterback? No, I don't think he is. I think it's the system. I think it's the players around him being able to invest and put great players around him that does that. And the Cowboys aren't doing that with Dak. And so that's why you don't see the success that we all want to see. Don't blame Dak Prescott for that. Blame the front office for sitting there this offseason with their thumbs planted firmly up their asses while everybody else is making moves.
Well, here's what I'm going to ask, okay? Do we look at this and say, the 12-5 team that we just had, do we look and say today is it a better team than it was then?
Today, are they better?
Or today, are they better?
Oh, well, I got to see the draft and everything, but right now, no.
No. So if the team is not doing anything to improve, and we'll have the draft, but everybody's got the draft. You've got other teams that have brought in more players that are proven and so on that you have to say they've gotten better. If we have not done anything to improve ourselves other than the draft, why do we think that we're supposed to win a Super Bowl? Why do we think that Mike McCarthy is supposed to overcome not getting more talent when he didn't have enough talent to compete with the other teams? Now, to the Green Bay game, we should have won that game. But I'm going to tell you what I will go to my grave saying that I think happened. When we went from being, fifth seed, where everybody's talking about we're going to be playing on the road, the Cowboys stink on the road and everything else, and all of a sudden now we're the number 2 seed, and we kept hearing about now the Cowboys are going to have multiple games at home, they're unbeatable at home. I think the players bought into that. When Sam Williams and whoever else it was were already planning a post.
Turpin.
We're planning our victory party. What do you mean how are you gonna have a victory party? We haven't won yet. They literally figured we've got this one. This is a bye week for us. All we have to do is just show up, put our uniforms on, and Green Bay is just going to give us the game. And Green Bay came out there and they bitch slapped them.
Yeah.
And before they knew it, it's like, wait a minute, what the hell?
Yeah.
It literally was that. Now, I want to make sure shout out to everybody that's in here watching the show right now. Make sure you go over to Cowboys Cave. I'm gracious for Mike and for Kelly inviting me onto the show tonight. Make sure you sub up tonight, right now, to their channel. They're putting out great work and everything else. Some incredible interviews that Mike is doing. He's got all kinds of friends. And speaking of one of your friends, I'm going to go back to the whole Dak Prescott and getting something for him.
Yeah.
Your buddy, damn, what's his first? Dan Cilillo.
Oh, Dan
Cilio. Yeah, that guy. He was saying that New England is calling to trade for Dak and would be willing to pay him $60 million. And of course, Dak would jump at doing that. But I ask you, this is going to be my thing. If you're Dak Prescott, why would you want to make it easy for the Cowboys to move on from, right? Just to go to any place. If New England called and said, we'll give you a couple of picks and stuff for it. Why would I want to go, first of all, to New England, a team that's got a rookie coach, that's going to have to give up multiple picks for me, which means it's going to be harder for them to rebuild than playing through the season, getting my money from the Cowboys, and then picking the team that I want to go to. Maybe I want to go to the New Orleans Saints because I'm from Louisiana. Maybe I want to go to the Rams because, Matthew Stafford's getting old and I got Sean McVay and they don't have a problem bringing in talent. Why would I want to go ahead and say, let me help the Cowboys out by hurting the team I'm going to? Would you do that?
No, and I believe that's a bad situation for Dak. And do you really believe that the Patriots have like the 3rd pick, right? Don't they have? They're not doing that.
Well, and
they did draft Mac Jones. How'd that work out for him?
I know.
I'll say this too, though. I feel like the Cowboys, in terms of in terms of their negotiating, I feel like they kind of got bent over the barrel a little bit with the whole Cowboys Dak situation. And the reason why I say that is because two things. One, the Cowboys were insistent on giving him a longer deal, a 5-year deal. Dak's team wanted the 3-year deal, right? Then also, so the Cowboys, they bent on that. They're like, all right, we'll do the 3-year with the 2 void years. Then the Cowboys, then Dak's team wanted to throw in the no trade contract, right? No trade clause. The Cowboys kind of bent to that. I felt like at the time that they gave Dak the contract,
4 years.
I felt like they had a little bit more faith in him at the time, but still, I feel like you should always, that should be kind of a sticking point is like, all right, we're going to have, if we're going to bend to you on one area, we're going to have the trade clause in here so that you don't end up in this type of situation. Because I felt like even at that time, I felt like that the Cowboys, Jerry still was saying some sketch things when they were extending Dak. He was still saying some things that made you think, is he really like,
yeah.
I mean, is he really all in with Dak?
Here's the thing. If you're Dak, you've already been NFL, man of the year. You've been, rookie offensive player of the year. You are almost in reach of every Cowboys record. I think you're 42 TD passes away from being the all-time leader, and only think 4,700 yards away from having the all-time leads in yards. Now, he has had that 4,900.
Gotta be fair.
Well, true, but at least when you leave, your name's still at the top of those lists. I don't care what area you have. And it would be nice to go ahead and say, you know what? You didn't really want me. Here you go. You're going to have to look and see my name up there for the rest of my career. For him, you would think that only thing that mattered, he's made more money than he can ever be able to spend between all of the endorsements and the money he's gotten from the Cowboys. He's gotten about $190 million, which pales in comparison to, say, Kirk Cousins, who's now going to be over 300. The thing that's important, I would imagine, for him is that Super Bowl. And see, this is where I wonder, is it Dak that's kind of said we're going to hold off on this contract, or if it's the Cowboys? Because if I'm Dak, I'm be like, look, I'll give you a good deal. I'll give you a home team discount, but what are you going to do to help me get what I want, which is a Super Bowl? If you want me to give you a good contract, what are you going to give in return? You got to show me something for me to do that.
Yeah. I don't agree. Ask you a question, Mark, and for both of you guys real quick. I want to ask both of you guys a question because this came to mind when we're talking about Dak, we're talking about contract, right? Okay. So wasn't Joe Flacco on the last year of his deal when he won the Super Bowl?
Yes, he was.
And then what did the Ravens have to do? They turned around
and had to pay him a boatload of money.
Huge contract, right? So I'm not saying Dak is Flacco and that he would, win a Super Bowl and then just turn around and just kind of, but the thing is, what if he does win a Super Bowl if he wins a Super Bowl for you,
and then walks away,
and now you're having to give him a way larger contract. Like if you get him right now, right, you can lock him in. Granted, you're going to have to pay him big money, but imagine what that money looks like if Dak wins a Super Bowl this year.
You know what? I don't care what it costs.
Cowboys Super Bowl, so nobody comes.
Just give me a Super Bowl, man. I don't care. Pay the man. Pay the man.
Yeah, no,
if the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl, do you know how much money the NFL would make if the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl? Do you know how many Cowboy fans would descend on New Orleans for the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Well, they were talking.
You wouldn't find a hotel room within 150 miles of New Orleans.
Yeah. No, and that's why I say that. That's why I always say that when people say the NFL is rigged, this whole NFL. I said if the NFL was rigged, the Cowboys would have been a Super Bowl a long time ago because there's no bigger draw than the Dallas Cowboys,
right?
Man. Yeah,
but conspiracy theory is though, if the Cowboys were to win it, you think about how much stuff they wouldn't have to talk about. Cowboys are chokers. The Cowboys, they suck. They're not. I mean, listen.
But at least get the Cowboys to the main event. I mean, if you watch WWE, you're not having your two main stars not be in the main event. The Cowboys are one of the main stars. I mean, let's just face it. The Cowboys are a draw. So at least you could have them in the Super Bowl and have them lose. I mean, at least give me an NFC championship game if we're rigging things here. Give me to an NFC title game with some hope that a Super Bowl is around the corner.
Yeah, but
not even that.
I tell you, it's frustrating. And hey, Malik has been hopping in there. He's going to be on Tuesday because he has some things. I don't know if I owe him a steak dinner. Mark, you decide. We had a bet. He said Purdy was going to be better than Dak Prescott last year. I don't know if Purdy was. I mean, what do I owe him a dinner? Does he owe me a dinner? Is it a draw?
I don't think you can compare the two because take a look at what he's got to work with. Brandon Ayuk, although he might be gone, you end up having Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in football. You got, Kittle, right? One of the best tight ends in football. And you got the most physical wide receiver in football. You've got four legitimate killer weapons right there. Are you telling me that Dak had that to work with?
Not only that though, but what happened when Trent Williams went down, Debo went down?
Yeah.
What happened? They lost
three in a row.
3 in a row. So was Brock Purdy still under center when they lost 3 in a row? He was, right? I mean, so I'm not. Brock Purdy has arguably, in my opinion, one of the greatest play callers in the NFL right now as a head coach, and one of the best built rosters. They haven't been able to, to seal the deal in the Super Bowl, thankfully, because, let's just face it, San Francisco, right? This is to you. But they haven't been able to seal the deal. But look at their roster and look at the way that they move, the way they operate, the way they're constant. Like last year, they already had a good defense. They're like, you know what? We're going to bring in Hargraves from Philadelphia, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to, we want to get Christian McCaffrey. Like they were making moves to make their team better because they're like, let's capitalize, let's cash in, let's win a Super Bowl. And I mean, I'm honestly quite jealous of the way that they operate and move because I feel like they do things the right way. I feel they're an enviable franchise to be enviable over, even though they still have a longer drought than the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to winning the Super Bowl. So and I always say this, I do always say this, and I do stand by it. Don't get me wrong, I'm enviable of the way they do it, but I do say this. It doesn't mean anything if you don't cash in and win the game, because in 20 years from now, is anybody going to remember that the Niners played in the Super Bowl last year? No, they're not. They're going to remember that the Chiefs won it. They're going to remember that the Chiefs have another one. Like, you don't remember the teams that lost in the Super Bowl unless you're a fan of that team. You remember the ones that won the Super Bowl. So in the end of it, they can be as, whatever competitive as they want, as great run as they want. They haven't cashed in on the ultimate goal, and the Cowboys haven't either. And that's what, that's the $1 million question, is what do we have to do to get that number 6?
Yeah.
If we knew, we'd be running the team, right?
What we have to do is hog tie Jerry and Stephen Jones and throw them in a closet and let somebody else run the organization.
Well, we're going to be out at AT&T one of these times, so we're going to have to maybe gather a group up and do that to get this thing going. But we've been rolling for over an hour, and I'm like Mark. I'm older and I'm on the East Coast, so it's a little bit later for us. So,
yeah.
We could wrap this thing up, but I just want to obviously say, Mark, man, it's been an honor to have you in. Been a big fan of yours, and I appreciate all the support. I've seen you hopping in some of the interviews that we've done with some former Cowboy players. It's like I said, man, we can't get no Super Bowl, so we're gonna bring some Super Bowl champions into the cave and into Cowboys Nation, and hopefully maybe it'll rub off on some people. You know what I mean?
I actually love that you guys do that. Like this weekend is the big Chantilly show, although there's not as many legends that are going to be there. I always love to go, even though I've gotten like Randy White's autographed like 10 times, and I usually just give it away and stuff. But so many of those great players, people don't know their stories and the things and all that. And it really drives me crazy because, we got all these fans out there saying we got 5 rings, but they don't know anything about those guys that actually made those 5 rings. And so that's where I love it. Keep bringing those guys on, man, and keep letting them tell the stories and stuff. And those of you that are out there, if you understand what it was really like to really see what football was like, go back and look at some of those old games and things. Every other play would be now unnecessary roughness. The way they played was totally different than what you see right now, and that's what football really was football. And I really appreciate you guys bringing me on.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, and hopefully we can do it again. And more importantly, hopefully we get to see out AT&T. We'll have to figure out if the game that you might be going to, if you go to one, and hook up. If not, we got some road trips to Atlanta or Carolina. So
definitely Carolina is one because that's just right down 95. So definitely looking at Carolina. We'll definitely be at the Washington Dallas game here. We do a big tailgate there every year, and we'll do a couple in AT&T.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to it, man. We appreciate it. Kelly, any final thoughts?
No, man, Mark, just thanks for coming on, man. It was good to have you on. Long overdue, man. Big fan. Love watching your stuff. And for once, you actually look like you're relaxed. You're not doing anything, activities, rebuilding, remodeling, or doing anything, man. But I do love that. You guys, if you have not gone over to Mark's channel, make sure you do that and subscribe as well. I know he plugged us, man, but the guy is great. I mean, he'll do a video from the car. He's in a drive-thru. He's in a Home Depot. I mean, this guy is all over the place, man, and he's bringing you this news, mobile, breaking, as it's coming. I swear, every time I get a little dinger, it's Mark, and he's
like
breaking a little
that motherfucker again. He beat me again.
I get the news from Mark pretty much before ESPN even breaks it on my phone. So I'm just saying the guy is a YouTube legend, man. So if you have not went over to his channel, please do that and subscribe because he's giving great Cowboys content.
Yeah.
So,
no, awesome. Great stuff.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, guys. You guys have a great evening. Thanks for hanging out in the cave. We'll see you guys.